And Bob, you're recording. All good to go.
Okay. Great. Wait for everybody just to wait for some more people to join up. But anyways, folks, welcome to the fourth Digital Transformation in Government Conference. This is the 14th in the afternoon. We are fortunate enough right now to have with us Deniz Susar from the UN, United Nations, and United Nations Department of Economics and Social Affairs. And what they do is they do an e-government survey every 2 years, and it's quite extensive. And it's interesting just the factors they take into account with respect to the progress people make on the e-government area. So Deniz Susar's main work areas include e-government, internet governance, smart cities, artificial intelligence, information and communications and technology indicators, and in general using information and communication and technology for sustainable development in general. Deniz takes an active role in preparation of annual Internet Governance Forum meetings and its inter-sessional working group. He also leads the UN DESA, which is the Department of Economics and Social Affairs, activities on the World Summit on the Information Society, more affectionately known as WSIS. He coordinates the work on smart cities with the local online survey index, LOSI, and he'll be covering that in the presentation today, which is part of the United Nations e-government survey. He represents the UN in the partnership on measuring ICT development and works on ICT, which is information and communications and technology indicators, to track progress on the achievement of sustainable development goals. He holds a master's degree on international political economy and development from Fordham University, New York, and a computer engineering degree from the Bogazi University of Istanbul. So without further ado, we want to welcome you and thank you very much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to give us a presentation on the methodology for measuring e-government.
Thank you. Thank you, Robert, for the kind introduction. And I'm happy to be with you here again, and greetings to all participants from my side. As Rob mentioned, my name is Deniz Susar. I work in Digital Government Branch in UN Department of Economic and Social Affairs. Today, I would like to talk to you about the UN e-government survey, and I would like to take you to our database and show you one or two countries, how the work we conduct transforms into our knowledge base. And also last part will be about local online service index, as Rob mentioned, is part of the UN e-government survey, where we look at the cities. So in 2022, we have launched the 12th edition of the UN e-government survey. We have been conducting this assessment since 2003. And we have more than 20 years of data, which the details will follow in the next slides. So when we define e-government development index, 1/3 of it comes from online services. These are basically web features under 5 categories: institutional framework, content provision, service provision, participation, and we call technology, technical features of the websites. And for an e-government portal to function efficiently, we need human capital. We look at adult literacy, gross enrollment ratio, and data about schooling from UNESCO. And of course, you also need a strong infrastructure. For that, we get data from International Telecommunication Union, ITU, mobile subscribers, fixed broadband, internet users, and active mobile broadband subscription. So these three components form eGovernment Development Index. The way we conduct assessment is briefly described here. First, before we assess the portals, we send out a questionnaire to 193 member states and also the most populous city, largest city in population, receives a questionnaire from us. That questionnaire helps us to check, to identify which portals to check, and also guides our researchers. In the assessment phase, we recruit two people living in that country and also two people living in that city that we assess. And these people have obviously speak the native language, but also have digital ID if it's utilized in that country. So they can fully test the things that we look at. And the final phase is once we collect the data from, as you can imagine, 4 times 193, nearly 800 people, then we analyze that data, form the online service index that you see here in this slide, and we merge it with the other data and we form eGDI. So if you wanna look at one of the countries, you can go to our portal. I think you can still see my screen. Here, publicadministration.un.org/egovkb. You can go to data and country data. And we can choose one country. I am presenting you from Gulf countries, so let's choose Bahrain. I am actually located right now in Saudi Arabia for a meeting, but let's look at Bahrain. So if you look at Bahrain, you see that eGDI overview, they are ranked 54 in 2022. They belong to very high eGDI. So if they score more than 0.75, in this case, they have 77, 0.77. So 0.75 and higher is in the very high eGDI. We also look at, as I mentioned, one subcomponent is e-participation. They rank 89 in e-participation with slightly lower score, 0.44. In the knowledge base, you can see that we compare Bahrain to the world leader Denmark, region leader. In this case, Asia Pacific is the big region, which is the leader is Republic of Korea, and sub-region leader is United Arab Emirates. So you can see how Bahrain does compared to leaders in the world region, sub-region, and also in e-participation, how they do compared to leaders in that category. So this was eGovernment Development Index. If you look at its subcomponents, the first subcomponent, as I mentioned in my slide, is all online service index. So you get more detailed data about Bahrain's online service index. Here, Bahrain scores 0.75. This means that 75% of the features are found by researchers in Bahrain national government portals. While in Estonia, our researchers found all the features that we asked them to look for. And in Korea and United Arab Emirates, as you see, 98% and 90% respectively. Here, also for Bahrain, you see the subcomponents. Institutional framework, they actually have full score there. And as you see, the area that they need improvement is e-participation and some technical features that we look at. Content and service, they are also close to 90% in both. And the other subcomponent that we look at is telecommunication infrastructure index. Here, Bahrain scores 74%. And if you look at the details of telecommunication infrastructure index, they are actually very strong in internet users, active mobile broadband, and as well mobile cellular. But fixed broadband, they are not doing good. And there may be many reasons for that. Maybe the country is living okay with only mobile broadband. But fixed broadband, we think it is still important for many countries, not only developed countries, but for many countries in other regions, and that's why we still measure that. And last but not least, human capital. Bahrain is doing 81% here, and you can see the subcomponents, how they score from each subcomponent here. So first, I wanted to show you this so that in case you would like to get some data, you can go here, country data, and you can look at your own country and see which areas the country that you are interested in is lacking behind. In Bahrain case, it's obviously e-participation and fixed broadband. These are some things that we think they should invest. So let's go back to presentation. So I talked about the eGov-KB, eGovernment knowledge base. If we look at some global and regional trends briefly, I mean, since 2020, eGovernment Development Index increased from 0.59 to 0.61 for the world. So this is something, a slight improvement. And you see here how countries are distributed to low. We have only 7 countries that are less than 25%, middle and high majority of the countries in this category, and very high 60 countries. And here in this slide, I am showing the regions. The blue line is showing the Europe, and the red is Africa, even though since 2008, Africa is doing some progress. It is really not at the expected levels. Asia, Americas, and the world is shown in green. So Asia and Americas are slightly higher than the world average. This is, I mentioned, Europe has the highest level of eGovernment development, and I can see that you can all guess this. So this is really nothing major as a finding, because as you know, yeah, we have many advanced countries in Europe. I will not spend too much time on the regional rankings. You can, but I will show you how you can find this data in the knowledge base. So let me skip this part and go back to knowledge base again. So if you go to data here, regional data, everything that I showed you, you can find here, and you can also download the data, as well as you can choose different country groups, high income, small island developing states, etc. Or you can choose eGovernment Development Index or e-Participation Index and look at only the regions or sub-regions that you are interested in. Some highlights from here. I mentioned that eGDI has increased slightly. Here, Europe remains the leader. You can also look at the infographics. In 2020, 14 countries moved to higher eGovernment Development Index groups. 4 countries from high to very high, Serbia, Ukraine, Peru, and Georgia, and 8 countries from middle to high, and 2 countries from low to middle group. I mean, correlation, there's strong correlation, obviously, between eGovernment development and e-participation. Again, this is, there are really very less outliers that they do good in one but not good in the other. The chart shows us that. I will go into details of local e-government in the next slides. So let me go back to the slides again. and some findings from different from the publication. I mean, we think that still it's not only digital, the future of e-government, but hybrids. There will still be a need for human agencies supporting some e-government services. Digital divides are not static, so we see this within the countries, between the different groups, and also between the regions in the country. So let me look at some other findings here. Yeah, basically, governments, we say, should adopt inclusion by design or inclusion by default, inclusion first strategies. So it's whatever they are developing online, they should make sure that they can reach to all parts of people in the group, and obviously there are many people that are not connected yet. So with this, let me also talk briefly about the local online service index. Again, the data for local online service index, in this case for the cities, can be found online. And the chapter for in chapter 3 in e-government survey also further elaborates how cities do. So we have started this pilot study in 2018 with 40 cities and 60 indicators. 2020 we increased to 100 cities, and 2022 we look at the most populous city in each UN member state with 86 indicators. And the reason for this is really simple. Municipalities are closer to people, and most of the time, if people are using online services, this may be some services provided by cities, be it or like waste collection or paying your local bills, etc. And also today, 56% of the world's population live in cities, and is expected to grow to 6.7 billion in 2050. And the rate of urbanization is expected to be higher in Africa and Asia. So, and urban residents are twice as likely as those living in rural areas to use the internet. So there are many reasons, I think, many justifications that cities should invest in their online services. And you see many different projects under the label Smart City. Not necessarily all of them are smart, but I think it's important that these are taking place. And in the local index, we look at 86 indicators, as I mentioned. These are also divided under institutional framework, content, services, technology, and participation and engagement. Institutional framework may not be clear, like we look at the municipal e-government strategy, organizational structure, and some information about legislation such as data privacy or open data protection, access to information. At least we look at if the cities are informing residents about this. Content, I think, is more straightforward. We look at all types of content, starting from transportation, tourism, and services as well. Availability of targeted government services for the residents, participation and engagement if the city is trying to make effort to engage residents in that city for any policy making. We looked at, as I mentioned, 193 cities, but we ended up with 146 city portals. So just there, one first finding, 47 most populous city in 47 countries do not even have a presence, online presence. They don't have a portal. So that's itself, I think, an important finding. And in 2022, it's difficult to believe some cities may be using national portals. I understand, but most of these cities that don't have a portal are in developing regions, and I think they obviously need our help. Here you see a very high LOSI group. Berlin, Madrid share the first place. They achieve 97% of the features that we assess, followed by some other cities. Cities marked with star have also ranked in the top 10 in 2018 and 2020. And Copenhagen and Singapore are assessed for the first time in 2022. So Kiev and Riyadh moved from the middle to very high LOSI group in 2022. So if we look at, because if you remember, I mentioned that we assessed 100 cities in 2020. And we assessed also, out of those 100 cities, 83 of them were also assessed in 2022. So how did those 83 cities did between 2020 and 2022? We saw some progress. So very high was only 14 in 2020, and it increased to 25. So these 83 cities made some progress if we just look at the snapshots of the 2 years, 2020 and 2022. Average also increased from 43% to 51% in 2022. Here, if you look at the mega cities of 10 million or more, so this is from 146 cities. Mega cities, larger cities are doing better. Their average is 0.70, while urban settlements with fewer than 500,000 inhabitants is the least. So population has some direct correlation how the city portal performs. And there may be many reasons for this, like maybe the larger cities have more resources or they have more talent in the city to develop some services. So this is something to be further researched. Here in this table, I am comparing the city portal to national portal. So this X horizontal line columns are showing the online service index, and this vertical lines are showing the city portal. So if there are 35 city country pairs, both city and national portal is in the very high group, and 20 both in high. But if you look at the shaded area with red, you see that there are 16 country city pairs where their national portal is performing better than city portal. And all these red shaded national portal is 1 level or 2 level up compared to city portal. And there are only 5 city portals are doing better according to our methodology at the city level. These are Moscow, Bogota, Brussels in the high group, Monaco, and Brazzaville. So these are the only 5 cities that we found doing better. And if you look at the services, the highest compliance rate is at the institutional framework. Compliance for content provision and technology is very high, and lowest compliance is for service provision. So if you look at service provision here in the middle row, you see that 67 cities met between 0 and 25% of the service indicators, and only 18 cities met 75 to 100% of service indicators. So that means there is really room for improvement for services. These are some details about what we look at under institutional framework. I went through this organizational structure. So let me go to the next slide. Content. We look at sectoral information, health related, environment, social welfare, education. I mean, health, maybe because of COVID-19 in 2022, that was the highest information we found. Other information, sports and culture, it was very high, which is, I think, expected for cities. And also waste and recycling and public transportation was also very high. There are many cities doing procurement announcements. Not that many, nearly half of them are displaying their procurement results. When we come to services, you can see that paying for some kind of online fee, either utility, e-procurement, applying for building permits or business licenses are at the top. For engagement, most of the cities are usually using social networking features, which is, I think, a positive thing. At least we can see that cities are going to the platforms where residents are already present. There is feedback, complaint submission, budget-related information, and information on the public meetings of the municipal council are also high. Technology indicators, you may be wondering what are these. We look at browser compatibility, ease of portal finding. Can you easily find that city portal in the most common search engine in that country? Mobile device accessibility. So the cities are doing pretty good in these features. We also look at like help desk call number. Is there a call number that residents can call? If there's an online user support, etc. It could be either automated or in person. All these are detailed here. So we also, I mean, send out a questionnaire to cities and also to national governments before we start. I mentioned about this. So some insights. So I mentioned that inequalities between local and national portal performance. More populous cities tend to have higher portal performance. Service provision is the area that they need more work. In 2022, we found that most city portals had a dedicated COVID-19 section and some pandemic-related information. Okay, next. Okay, I think this is the graph that's showing city versus national, and as you see, the x-axis is national, y-axis is city. There are very few cities performing better than their national portal. Okay, we are also getting, this is my last point, we are also getting many requests from the countries asking why we don't assess more cities in a single country. For that reason, we created a memorandum of understanding. So we are partnering with different organizations or government entities in a country. We started this work with Brazil, Jordan, and Palestine. Right now, we are doing a work online, an assessment in India and Mozambique. Basically, we share our methodology, which can also be found in the annexes of the UN eGovernment survey. We share our platform. So these entities that we partner with in these countries, they recruit volunteers from the cities in their country. Like in Brazil, I think they assessed the most populous city and the capital city in each state. In Jordan, I know that they assessed 18 cities, in Palestine 14. Right now in India, they are assessing 14 cities, and in Mozambique, I don't know how many, but in the lines, we will also do this work in Uzbekistan, in Saudi Arabia. Basically, we share our methodology, our platform, and you use our platform, and you basically do the assessment and share the results. I'll show you a few examples from our portal, but we call this LOSI network basically a mechanism for cities to learn from each other and also compare between the years. So this is the end of my slide, but as I mentioned, I will show you briefly where you can find data about the cities. So if you go to in our portal application of LOSI methodology in countries, you can see the legal document. Here, are there any legal documents to apply LOSI methodology in your own country? You can download the legal document. We have a template for governments and another template for non-government entities. If your legal department finds this reasonable, then you get back to us and we sign this agreement. And after that, we give access to our platform. Your researchers use our methodology and assess. And then we also provide a template document here. Completed projects, Brazil is completed here. You can see their findings here, and we also hosted a webinar for their findings. You can see that webinar here. Jordan and Palestine, and as I mentioned, ongoing is India. For Palestine, we will have a webinar exactly 1 week from now, and we will hear from the researchers in Palestine how they did and how they found. And you can see the list of the cities here. So this concludes my presentation. I would like to thank again for organizers, and I am happy to take any questions. So with this, I stop sharing my screen. Back to you, Robert.
Thank you very much, Deniz. Much appreciated. I thought that was it's fascinating, all the work that you've done in this particular area. There's several questions for you. Now, you only assessed one city per country, right? The largest? Like for Canada, all you looked at was Toronto. Okay, fair enough. And I'd like to know, what is the motivation right now for countries to improve based upon these findings? Is there any motivation or anything driving them other than improvement and quality of service to their citizens?
Okay. So first of all, our methodology is not perfect. So I would like to start with that disclaimer, because the unit of study is the web portal, and there may be many other e-government initiatives happening in the country, and we may not obviously capture all these. This is first point. The second point is the countries that are ranked in the very high group. I have to say there is really not much difference between a first rank country or a 10th rank country. So the difference is really 1 or 2 questions, and this may also be caused by our researchers, because what we advise to our researchers is look for a feature, for example, driving license, within reasonable period of time. If you cannot find that information, mark no and pass to the next one. And this service may exist in that country, but if our researchers did not find it, then really they score no. And if both of them score no, we go with their judgment. Having said this, the main motivation for many countries is to do better than their neighboring countries. So this is still a peer pressure. Like right now, I'm in Saudi Arabia, and they would look at the region and they would say, okay, why didn't I do better than United Arab Emirates? And then they would look at their results, our results, and ask us, come up with questions why. But when this happens, we always say, like, your motivation should not be passing your neighbor, but basically providing the best possible service within your jurisdiction to the people. But still, I mean, this is at the end of the day, humans are managing these e-government services, and that's human nature to do better, to do higher in the ranking. But I mean, it's cost cutting, efficiency. I will not list those basic things. Like for many countries in Africa, it's efficiency, cost cutting, but then usage comes into the picture if it's really used, because there are still so many people not connected. So there are many reasons for improving your e-government systems, but I would surprisingly still see, especially in developing region, the peer pressure.
Okay, peer pressure is interesting. Has there been at the United Nations a development of a business case? That what they say is that generally speaking, endowed cities and e-government can basically save on their bottom line. Do you understand what I mean?
You mean like the impact of investing in e-government and savings?
Correct. It's the impact. It's a cost impact. You want to get the mayor's attention.
Yeah, I mean, we are trying to raise awareness just by doing this study, but the impact studies, I think, are done by many others. Academia, you can find many studies. World Bank does some, but from us, you won't hear that investment in e-government like translates to this much in GDP. No, we don't do that kind of data. We just, with our modest assessment, we just try to show the snapshot of country portals in a 2-week window every other summer, how they do. But we don't really do impact analysis. But what we do is, if countries come to us and request our support, then we have a different group which go to countries and they look at their e-government strategy, their relations between different ministries, and they come up with some kind of strategy to improve e-government in that country.
Okay, and last question. I don't see any other questions from the group, but I have a question. Right now, the World Bank came up and they have an index, and they said it was coordinated with yours. Now, are you looking at different things, or what's the overlap between the two and the relationship between the two?
Yes, I know that they are using some of the subcomponents from our side, and their index is, I may be wrong, but it's more like collecting different data from all different indexes and trying to bring them together. But for us, the unique part is really assessing the portal. So we do not get third-party data in the online portal. This is a very tedious job. We recruit these 800 volunteers, and in the coming month, in July and August, they will be looking at 400 portals. And this is our methodology has been like this since 2003, and there is no gray area. We look at black and white, either a feature exists or it doesn't exist. But in the World Bank study, which is, I think, very valuable, I also invite your participants to further study it. And I know that they use one of our components and a few others. And I think these serve for different needs from 2 different organizations. So I don't think that we are in any way replicating the work there.
Okay, good. That's just good to hear, because there was some confusion with respect to that. Well, are there any other questions from the attendees? Let's go into the Q&A session, please. Well, with that, I want to thank you very much, Deniz. That was a great presentation. Look forward to seeing the results of next year's assessment, because you did in 2022, and I think 2024 is the next big year, correct?
That is true. As I mentioned, we are doing the assessment in the next 2 months, and we will launch the results first part of 2024.
For anybody who's never seen the report, it's quite extensive, and I find it's very insightful. I mean, you have to go through all the detail is there, but on the other hand, too, some of the conclusions and some of the recommendations are definitely well worth the time to take a look at and assess. I know Canada right now is sort of gone from the top right and sort of snuck over into the stagnating countries and national portals. I think there's some work to be done in that particular area. That's peer pressure, I guess.
Yes.
Okay, for that. Well, thank you very
Yeah.
much for taking the time, Deniz. And with that, I'm going to be concluding this day of the conference. This is day 2 of a 4-day conference. We've got a big day lined up tomorrow. Okay, we have it starts off with smart cities in Taipei, where they're going to be 4 people are going to be giving a joint presentation on Taipei and the smart city. That's going to be followed by CIO Rachel Porteous of the financial tracking, whatever, the Canadian Government Financial Tracking Association, and they're overcoming digital transformation challenges. They've come a long way, and they've overcome quite a bit. Then we've got National Audit Office from the United Kingdom. It's the same as our Office of the Auditor General, and they're going to be talking about evaluating UK Parliament's digital and related delivery of value for money. And this falls in line with the last question that I posed Deniz with respect to, okay, where's the beef? What is the rationale for it, for all this IT? And then the European Commission, Dr. Raul Abrila is going to be talking about that, and they're going to be talking about the Interoperable Europe Act, and this and their artificial intelligence policy. And there's some really interesting nuggets that can be found, considering the size and complexity of the European Union, which is sort of a loose-knit federation of nations. In the afternoon, we've got the cyberspace track, where we've got folks from the Canadian Centre for Cybersecurity presenting. We've got AI and knowledge management supporting digital transformation, where we have some world-class experts, including Dr. Kimmets Dalkir, who's going to be presenting from McGill University. She's written numerous books on knowledge management and that are used worldwide, and it's published by the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. We've got interoperability from the World Bank. We've also got standards for digital credentials. So we talked about the importance of identity management that came out in Eric Sweden's discussion. We have training, cyber training. What does that constitute? By the Canadian Centre for Cybersecurity. We also have upskilling people using the Skills for the Information Age, SOFIA protocol. We've got some process mining presentations with their Center of Excellence from Transport Canada. Jacques Trottier will be presenting. And then we've got Najma Marie Al-Gharib, and she'll be talking about process mining and robotic process automation, which is a brand, well, it's an evolving technology, but it's becoming increasingly important with the advent of AI. Then we've got Marina van Koenet, who's going to be presenting on operations management and cyber compliance. And it's going to be mainly in the energy sector. And then we've got Bruno Ouellette, who's the a director of enterprise architecture in the Canadian Border Security Agency. And he's going to be presenting on digital transformation in the Digital Services Agency. And it's the CBSA. And again, it's another agency that has leveraged enterprise architecture to move forward. So we've got a fairly full plate. I hope that you all have a good evening and that you've enjoyed your day. And anyways, I look forward to seeing you tomorrow in your sessions. So with that, I'm going to stop the recording. Sorry, I just see a part. There was a question that was put out.